Currently 156 and stable. This is the highest my blood sugar has been in the past 24 hours, so I'm doing pretty good. Not going to complain. Took a correction, so hopefully that'll come right down. So I'll take that 150 any day over a 200 or a 300. A couple nights ago I had a blood sugar of almost 300. I could not figure out what happened, but I don't know. We're just going to move forward with it. But with that being said, let's jump into today's video. It's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel, and as you can tell by the title of today's video, I'm going to be sharing how my endocrinology appointment went and a bonus month 4 diabetes health journal series. Now the diabetic health journal only goes into 3 months. However, because I had an additional month to kind of prep myself for my A1c, I went ahead and made copies and did the last 20 some days, almost a full 4 months on the diabetic health journal, and I'll share kind of my new basal profiles, my new insulin to carb ratios, my sensitivity factor, and my new A1c. So first of all, my new A1c is 5.9%, which has basically stayed the same from last time, and I'm very, very pleased with that, despite having a lot of high blood sugars from pump transitions to having the flu back in March to having a close family friend die in April, and starting school. Like, that's incredible to me that I've been able to maintain such a great A1c and great control and good standard deviations and stability on my graphs. My graphs are fairly stable when you look at them, look at the data all together. So I'm very, very happy with that. My endocrinologist was very happy with it also. So I did discuss I had some issues with my endo team, and I stepped back for a minute and realized that I was misjudging my actual endocrinologist and putting the blame on her, when in reality that I shouldn't have had anything wrong with her. Because I've liked her from the get-go, and I've just liked her personality, and the way she explains things makes things so amazing. But because I had 2 poor experiences with backup teams, I pushed the blame on her, and I thought negatively about everything and not really just looking at the source, that it was my backup teams that really screwed me over. The first time they screwed me over is when I was ending the major part of the honeymoon phase, where back in September of last year I was only on Lantus, or long-acting insulin. And then come October, I was back on Humalog meals, Humalog 4 meals, because my blood sugars were going really, really high. They were running 200 to 300 before meals. And the one backup doctor told me that a blood sugar of nearly 200 was not enough for her to give me insulin at a certain meal. So when she said that, I was kind of like, that's not right. And I went against the backup doctor, because of course my actual endocrinologist was on vacation or something of that sorts, and I gave myself 2 units at the meal, and of course my blood sugars leveled off, and I knew at that point that, hey, I need insulin at meals again now. My honeymoon's over, and my pancreas is pretty much shot. The second time I had a problem with my endo team is when I transitioned from multiple daily injections to an insulin pump, and during this time my blood sugars were running 200 to 300 again. And originally the doses they sent me were really, really low, and I wish I would have said something to the diabetes nurse, because something didn't sound right when they were doing these calculations. And when I was calling in blood sugars, it's a requirement that you call in every day on the first week of the insulin pump, Tuesday through Friday or whatever, Monday through Friday, and give them your blood sugars. So on Thursday, I spoke to a different diabetes nurse who referred the blood sugars to a different endo that I didn't even know was there. And because my blood sugars were still running high, she then told me to reduce my basal rate. So she told me to reduce my basal rate, and I'm kind of going, okay. I got very upset at it, and I said goodbye to the nurse, and that's when I told you guys on Beyond Type 1 that I'm frustrated. This isn't right. This is the second time I've had problems. And I went against her, whatever, what you would call it, went against her advice, her guidance, and I increased it actually, and then leveled my blood sugars out, which is so funny to me, that I did the exact opposite, and it worked, and I never went low. And after a while, I come to recognize that it's not the fault of my endocrinologist that this happened. She again also was not there. She was on vacation or not in the office at the time, and I totally misjudged her from the beginning, or I should say I pushed the negativity onto her when in reality it wasn't her fault. It was these backup teams that didn't know me from Adam, don't know who I am as a person, don't know who I am about normal glycemia and blood sugar management and the ways I manage and stuff. And I just left it go. And when I went into my actual appointment, I explained a couple things, and she was kind of confused as to why a doctor would tell me to reduce my insulin when I was running high. Even my mother was like, you know, I don't have diabetes, but you're type 1, and if your blood sugar's high, that means you don't have enough insulin. That means you need more. So even my mother, who sees me live with type 1 diabetes, not knowing like all the scientific stuff, or maybe not fully understanding like the role of insulin, she even knew that, hey, when your blood sugar's high, you need more insulin. That means you're not getting enough. So my endocrinologist was actually not very pleased that a doctor told me to reduce my insulin when I was running high. She looked at all my adjustments that I had made, and she was totally like, yeah, you keep going what you're doing, and I'm happy with it. And I explained some of the non-traditional techniques I use, like bumping and nudging, to pre-bolusing, to if my blood sugar, you know, if there's insulin on board, but I know my blood sugar is with double arrows headed up or single arrows headed up, and I don't plan on doing anything, I'll take an additional unit and watch the blood sugars. And that's the one thing she wanted to talk to me about, was like, you know, if your blood sugar is this, you don't dump 5 units, do you? I said, no. I said, when I do the bowl with insulin, I'm only dumping at most 1 unit. Most of the time, I'm taking care of it at a blood sugar of 140 or 150, where my dosage is only going to be like a 0.5 or a 0.4 or a 0.6, just enough to nudge that blood sugar down. But yet, it saves me from going to a blood sugar of 200, having to take a large dose and cause a low. So my low blood sugar risk is extremely low, and I am 77 or 76% of the time in between 70 and 140 for 90 days, and that's absolutely incredible. So if you think about it in the terms of the ADA standards, that's between 70 and 180. I'm in that range probably 90 to 95% of the time. I'm just more normal glycemia or non-diabetic levels. So considering that I'm still fairly newly diagnosed, went through a lot of stress and a lot of high blood sugars, and still pulling out with an A1c of 5.9, that's incredible. And I'm proud of myself. And my fasting blood sugars are still good. They're about between 100 and 113. But now I'm actually can fine-tune my pump so good that most mornings I actually wake up in the 90s or the 80s. And I absolutely love waking up at non-diabetic levels. And I love beginning to eat food at non-diabetic levels, usually less than 100 or 110 when I eat, because if I do make a big mistake and I miscalculate carbs or I miscalculate how much insulin I should have gave myself for that meal, if my blood sugar were to skyrocket 100 points from a blood sugar of 80, it's not even going to hit 200 at that point. So that's kind of my perspective on that, and I had a great appointment, and I had a good overall intake on the Diabetes Health Journal, and I think it just made me more confident person, but also understanding that you need to understand how you're feeling in the moment to really understand how your blood sugars impact you. Because yes, long term makes a difference, but short term makes a difference too, because if my blood sugar's out of whack in the moment, it can make a difference of how I'm feeling in the moment. You know, if my blood sugar's really high or really low, it can impact my mood. I can be more anxious, I could be more nervous, I could be more crabby, I could be hungry, I could be thirsty, I could be tired, I could be unenergetic, if that makes sense. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can look at the Diabetic Health Journal, but the main thing for me was to be able to see like, hey, in the moment makes a difference too, just as much as long term. And I'm pleased with being able to maintain an A1c in the 5s for as long as I can. And I know ultimately it's going to be able to reduce my risk of complications. I'm not going to have to put off having a family if I want in the future. It's going to make me feel better as an overall person, and that's kind of interesting to note there. And another thing I wanted to note is on my paper, I noticed something changed on my paper where they say A1c goal less than 7%. I noticed that now it says less than 7%, but it's close to 6% as possible. So I'm almost wondering if they're doing more research and finding that the closer you get to 6, the healthier your blood sugars are going to be. And I believe that too. Like I said, my eye doctor believes less than 6.5, so I wholeheartedly trust that. And I wholeheartedly trust being under 6 to maintain a really happy and healthy life and to not have complications that come in the future. So the last few things I wanted to talk about was some of the things that I noticed more as summer is approaching. And this is truly my first summer. Well, I had last summer with diabetes because I was diagnosed in summer. but this is truly the first summer I've had with like not having any pancreatic function, and I'm noticing I need to stay hydrated more. I'm more thirsty otherwise, even being not having high blood sugar, I'm just having such a dry mouth. And it does make a difference on hydration with your blood sugar, you guys. I know it sounds nutty, but the days that I don't drink a lot, I have a harder time. If I take a correction, it might take longer for my blood sugar to get down. So I actually encourage you, and I encourage a lot of you, as a tip that I've learned, is when even if you take a small correction for like a blood sugar of like 140, 150, 160, to drink some water with it, because that might help bring that down a little bit faster. As a matter of fact, I think that's why my blood sugar's kind of been stubborn for the past hour. So I'm gonna, once I finish this video, I'm gonna go slug about 16 ounces of water, and that should hopefully help kind of level things off and bring things down. So wanted to let you guys know that my insulin to carb ratio for all my meals I have determined is still 1/10 as usual. Funny story how basically my rates have basically stayed the same since I went to an insulin pump. Maybe just a touch less, but I do find that I need two different basal profiles. I need one that is not related to PMS and one that is. You guys know about the one that is not related to PMS, but I came up with a basal 2. It's not as integratable of a basal profile, so I'm still kind of working on that. But these past few days, I've noticed I started to trend down, not low, but lower, you know, quicker, going on the lower side more quickly than I'd like in between meals. So I'm coming to the point now where the PMS is going to have to get switched back to basal 1, and then that's what's recognizing how to use it. And then obviously when I need to go back to PMS basal 2, once I start seeing my blood sugars trend up, I will turn that back on. But from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., I have 0.65 units, 6 to 11, 0.55, 11 to 4, 0.45, 4 to 8, 0.55, and 8 to midnight, 0.65. So it's kind of almost like a mirror image. But I find that when I'm right before my period, I actually have the most problems with being insulin resistant in the overnight hours from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. There's a big 10-hour gap where overnight I have a hard time, and then when morning through afternoon comes, I usually don't have a problem, which is kind of odd. It doesn't really follow like a normal like hormonal thing. But then again, if you're PMSing, your hormones are going to do what they want to do, and you can be more insulin resistant at different times of the day. Insulin sensitivity factor is still 1 unit, drops me 70. Like I said prior, during PMS I may be closer to 50 or 60, but I still use the 70 just because it's easier, and for the most part it works. And especially like during my PMS time, I like to do a lot more activity. So if I'm going to take a correction, I'd rather that correction be a little bit smaller than what it actually is, so that I have a buffer when I exercise. You guys know my target blood sugar is still 100 milligrams per deciliter, which is a unicorn. For you, those of you who don't know what a unicorn is, that's a blood sugar of 100 when you reach a blood sugar of 100, or 5.5 millimoles, or when your CGM and your meter match. And just having this diabetic health journal has overall let me understand the role of insulin and the body wholeheartedly, and that your insulin doses are not going to be the same from day to day. And that's what I talk about with being flexible and variable in your diabetes treatment. Now, you got to have something set, but that doesn't mean that you have to use a 1/10 every single day. I have it set that way in my pump, but if I know for a fact that I'm more insulin resistant, or I may be sick, or you know what, I'm going to exercise a lot today, you know, maybe I'd run a little bit lighter. Maybe if it suggests 4 units, I might only take 3 or 3.5 if I'm going to go out and exercise. Whereas if I'm sick, I might take 5, if that makes sense. It's learning how to be flexible for what you know, what your body's going through in the moment. And because the body's an ever-changing thing, you need to understand that insulin's role is going to change every single day. Some days you're going to have days where your blood sugars will be super high and you've done everything you can and they won't come down. And there are other days where your blood sugars are going to trend down no matter how little insulin you take. Your body may do some strange things, and you need to learn to accept that and understand that that's okay. And understand that diabetes is such a challenge, and I guess understanding more how to manipulate your basal insulin and your bolus insulin for what you're going through in the moment can really help that. But also, like I said, do understand that if you make mistakes or something doesn't go right, you're not a failure. You've done nothing wrong, but it's a way to look at yourself and improve and go, okay, what did I do wrong? If a pattern consistently continues, if you're continuously running high or continuously running low, then that means you really need to make some major changes and get a good baseline for where you need to be sitting at before you can move on and fix other things, or before you blame it on something. If you're consistently running a certain level when you're not really stressed or not really this or not really that, then it's time to make changes. So overall, like I said, this diabetic health journal helps you to make changes for what's going on in the moment, which in turn will lead to a healthier future and a healthier tomorrow, if that makes sense, you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video of my endocrinology appointment and my month 4 bonus review of the diabetes health journal. Would I recommend this health journal to anybody? Yes, absolutely. Will I do it again? Probably in the future, but as of right now, no, because it's just hard to sit and write things down a lot, because now that I'm back in school, I just feel like now I can kind of implement what I learned to be in the moment, and just using my Dexcom data and using what the Omnipod gets through Gluco and all the information I can get through Gluco is absolutely amazing. And again, I'm going to talk more about that in the future, but I hope you enjoyed this video. So if you did, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I post videos every single week about diabetes plus more. And until next time, 4 more videos. Take care. God bless. Be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. And I hope you enjoyed today's outdoor video. It was a beautiful day here. Pretty muggy, but beautiful anyways. The sky is still blue, so just like my shirt. And yeah, so I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.